All right, what's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 104 of The Hideout, where we will be discussing Web3, gaming, and the Metaverse. I am back. Last week I had an unexpected jury duty, which was lots of fun, but made me miss The Hideout, so I'm glad to be back. Talking to everybody, seeing everybody here. We have an awesome panel today. Doing our usual, going to get into it about the major themes in the Web3 space and the gaming space. Have an awesome panel of builders. We've got protocols, we've got games, we've got communities from all over around the world. So super excited to dive in. For those of you who may not know me, I see a few new faces in the crowd. My name is Nick Frontera. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Apollo Entertainment, company behind the Satoshiverse and the Legions 2029 game. I've been in the space probably just around, 7 or 8 years now, 2017. I was a lawyer in the entertainment industry for several years, and then I took the red pill on NFTs as the future of digital asset ownership and never looked back. We've been building Satoshiverse since 2020. It began as a blockchain-themed comic IP. We created one of the first Bitcoin-themed superheroes and expanded that into an entire gaming universe that now has our feature game, Legions 2029. So I will save all the details on Legions 2029 for another time because we have a lot of awesome guests. But what I will say at a very high level is it is a free-to-play third-person hack and slash game that is fully blockchain enabled. You can earn NFTs, use them in the game. All of our avatar collections are usable within our game. So there is a ton of fun stuff. We have a ton of prizes. There's a speed run leaderboard. If you like kind of a hybridization of God of War meets Diablo meets Hades, because we have a little bit of a roguelike element, I think you'll really like what we're building. And I think the most important part is it's free to play. All the information, gameplay footage, everything you need is in the post that I pinned up at the top of the spaces. So feel free to check it out. It's got everything you need to know to dive in. And we actually just announced that season 1 is coming to an end on January 8th. So just a little bit of time left, enough time to level up a character and try to get a speed run leaderboard in. And I know there's some competition at the top from some of the people in this space. So looking forward to seeing if anyone beats Fitzy's high score. I think I see Fitzy. I saw Fitzy out there. Maybe not anymore. But yeah, we've got some crazy high scores right now. People are competing for great prizes. So without further ado, let's dive into our panel. What I'll do is I'll call on you. If you could give us a quick introduction of yourselves, what you're building. Totally feel free to pin anything to the top of the space that you think would be illustrative. We definitely love especially gameplay, any kind of videos, anything that shows visually what you're building is awesome. So feel free to pin that to the top of the space. And yeah, so why don't we start with Brock from ZK Candy. Nice to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Can you guys hear me all right?
Loud and clear, my friend.
Awesome. So I've been in the blockchain space since like 2020. Kind of just started as like an NFT trader guy. Was pretty bad at it. So, I started building. I'm currently with ZK Candy L2 gaming chain. We're a, ZK chain in the Elastic Chain ecosystem. We've got some really cool games, and kind of a wide range of different styles. I guess they mostly keep me around for, shit posting and, I don't know, more of the degen side of things. So, I'm stoked to be here and I'm stoked to talk about Web3 gaming today. So thanks for having me on.
I love it. Well, it's going to be fun. I can't wait to have your perspective on some of these topics. Let's jump over to Realms of Illuria. Welcome. And I know that we had a recent rebrand, so it's probably one of the first times we're calling it that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have just rebranded from Synergyland to Realms of Illuria. I am Eldar from Realms of Illuria. I'm the community manager Been in crypto now for a good few years, being a degen. I'm into my meme coins. I'm into my full-on degenerate things, as most of us crypto native people are. But yeah, been community management working with Realms of Illyria for the last 9 months. Been absolutely loving it. Of course, we've just rebranded. We're about to launch our mainnet dungeon update on Treasure. We've just opened our migration today, so lots going on. It's kind of the hell week right now, ending of Q4, but super happy to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me on the space tonight.
Absolutely. I was looking at some of the gameplay footage. It looked very cool. You should, if you have something, you should definitely pin it up to the spaces that others can see. But for now, yep, welcome. Excited to dive in and hear the angles as well. Let's jump over to, I'm going to try to pronounce it. It's Dinino from Brazil, or did I get that totally wrong?
No, that's right. Incredibly, you got it right. Most of the people get it wrong. They say Deninho, but we accept all of them. There is no official way to call it. It's all good. And
It's okay. I'm a huge football fan, so I've seen the NHL plenty of times with the superstars. So I think that Ronaldinho made it easy.
exactly, nice. Yeah. So thank you so much for to having us here. I'm Gabe. I'm the co-founder of Geninho and Hot Cafe. It's a Web3 gaming studio. And my trajectory on Web3 is similar to yours. I started around 2016 to 17, most as investor, participant. I was mining Ethereum and another tokens back in the crazy mining trend, passing through ICOs and all the phases of the Web3. And around 2020, I started our gaming studio, and we got together with Geninho, which is Eric, the founder. We also call him Geninho. And he had his games launched on Steam, Nintendo Switch, and other platforms. And we had the idea to bring up Geninho to Web3. So we did through the PFP collection. That got even crazier and bigger and more ambitious. That resulted in on the new Fun World. That's our game. It's a social MMO. We can compare to Club Penguin, the old Club Penguin, and it's basically a social MMO with mini games and collectibles. And yeah, you guys can check it out on geninhoadventures.com. And right now we are working, developing, building towards the launch of our Play to Airdrop campaign, our token, and our online store. Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
I love it. Yeah, no, it looks cool. I was checking it out before as well. I saw that you guys might have something on Hyperplay as well, which is cool. They're definitely friends of ours over there doing some awesome stuff. So really cool to see another take on blockchain gaming, and cool to learn about where it came from. Definitely love hearing, Web2 natives coming into the Web3 gaming space, because that's what we need more of. So definitely excited to jump in. To take us away with the questions, Spencer, I'm not sure I see you on stage. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, now you are on stage. Weird.
No?
Oh, yeah, there we go. Now I'm seeing it.
I don't know. It's just X doing its thing,
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. We're all good. Go ahead.
Cool. Alrighty then. Well, I will get into some of the housekeeping items, but first I will introduce myself. My name is Spencer Vogel. I'm the business development manager here with Satoshiverse and Apollo Entertainment. Been with the team for the last 3, maybe now coming up on 4 years. It's been a while, and been a cool, fun ride. But just getting into the housekeeping items for today. So first thing I'm going to do is pin a tweet to the top of the space here. So every week on the Hideout, we do a giveaway. We give away 5 Satoshi's crystals, which is one of the main in-game resources within the Satoshiverse. is needed in order to upgrade all of your avatars and in-game items. All you have to do to enter that giveaway to win those 5 Satoshi's crystals is stick around and be in the space when we end, at the end of the hour, and then repost that tweet that I just pinned to the top of the space that says "We're live," with the Hideout logo on it and the guests. Really easy, and definitely get involved. And if you haven't already, definitely give the Hideout account a follow. Getting into the format of the space, we're going to start out with a group question. I'll call on someone to start, and then feel free to just jump into the conversation from there. No need to raise hands or anything like that. If you have something to say, feel free to just jump in. Then we'll get into some individual questions for each of you guys. And then if we have time again at the end, we'll do some more group questions. But yeah, that is pretty much it. So without further ado, let's get into the first question. And maybe Brock can start us out on this one. So how can Web3 projects effectively communicate complex concepts like decentralization and digital ownership to a mainstream audience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my brain immediately goes to trying to talk in terms of like a Web2 gamer. And so I think about all the hours of COD that I've played or all the hours of like Red Dead Redemption I've played over the years. And I don't really have anything tangible to show for it in terms of like things that are mine. You unlock a lot of skins and you unlock items in the game, but ultimately you don't own those and they're not really something that you have autonomy over. So I think trying to like frame the solution that Web3 gaming brings as sort of this bringing autonomy over what you earn in games back to like the players themselves, is kind of where my brain goes. I also think that can apply to like stuff, like monetization and having the ability to actually earn from a game that you put a lot of time in and that you support early. So I think in terms of like communicating to mainstream gamers, that would be like a big one is, having like autonomy over the things that you've actually earned, being able to go and use those in larger ecosystems that can bring you like further value, even if a game stops supporting that item or, the game studio becomes defunct or something. I think the idea of having things that outlast the games themselves can be a really powerful narrative that we can kind of lean into.
Everyone else, feel free to jump in. Realms or Dino?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what Brock mentioned at the start is super important. It's about simplifying the language and kind of talking how a gamer would or how the audience you're trying to onboard would behave or would talk. It's like we call it Web3. Why are we already putting ourselves in a separate group to Web2? We're kind of self-imposing these barriers upon ourselves in a way when we should really simplify everything. Instead of saying decentralization, we should say power to the community. And it's, of course, the ownership of the assets, I think, as Brock said, again, will be the main thing that sways the mass market here eventually. But right now, we really need to focus on the tools and the I always struggle with this one, seamlessness of Web3 as a whole. So then when it comes to the actual communication, the communication doesn't have to be this tedious process because it is so easy to get involved. So I think there's a work to be done on our side, and work to be done on our side is in terms of the language, but also in terms of the technology. We need to improve it and we need to make the process of getting involved easier. So therefore the communication is also easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the two things that you guys said are definitely where my mind went pretty immediately. I think that we really, to repeat what Brock was saying, we really need to focus on the value props. We really need to look at what is the actual things we're creating value for. What is the new stuff you could do with NFTs? And actually, let me jump over to Dinino first, and I see your hand is up, and then I can continue.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. It's following the same thought as everybody. I feel like the easiest way is definitely through the monetization, like he said. And because if you communicate the opportunity of making some profit or monetize through your game to a mainstream audience, they automatically will make an effort to learn the ropes of Web3, but maybe it's not the best approach. I feel like through security, trying to educate how the Web3 aspects, like through ownership, it has the benefit, but it also comes with a risk. Like if the mainstream audience is not used, they can easily lose their assets or get hacked or something like that. So definitely the necessary way is through communicating through safety, how to handle your assets and your funds in your wallet. But the best way, I feel like that's the best question. Like which one of those would be the best approach?
If I can just jump in real quick again, sorry. You said that about profit, like letting people know about profit. I don't necessarily think that is a great way to go about it, because I think the moment a lot of these Web2 gamers hear crypto or money to be made with gaming, they instantly think of a scam rather than thinking this is a great opportunity. So I think for now, the focus should be rather on creating an amazing game that people want to play because it's an amazing game, rather than you can make money with this and extract all you want from our game, and who cares what the game is. First, I think we should promote incredible games that every gamer wants to play, and then when they realize they can own their assets and earn money from playing that game, it should be seen as a bonus on top.
Definitely. Yeah, I mentioned it was like it's the easiest way, probably not the best way to communicate a mainstream through the monetization, because in the end of the day, that attracts a lot of people and their attention. So you can communicate through when you get their attention, but it's definitely not the best way. I feel like building like a focus on building a nice game, like we definitely through into now 2024 we're seeing a great wave of developers focusing on that, different than 2021, 22, and even 23. Now I feel like there is no space for like gamification and half games and just a little version of a game. Now you see a lot of products coming in 2024. So I feel like this part of the fun in the games, we're gonna have it covered.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and I guess to kind of add to some of the thoughts that were made, I think one of the reasons we didn't see a lot of the top games being released in 2021 is because everyone who was building them started them then, and are finally starting to finish them now in 2024. So we're seeing a lot better games that were started in the bull run and now are being finished and were funded then, but are now being released now. So that's awesome to see, especially on the higher fidelity side, with those games taking longer to make. We've seen some cool stuff come out recently. I guess from my perspective, the value question is all about creating value, right? So the baseline that Realms was saying, is create a great game, create something fun. It doesn't need to be a multi-million-dollar feature length, high fidelity game to be a great game. I mean, it really just has to have a hook, something that people enjoy playing, something that people want to come back to. It could be hyper casual and still be a great game. But there has to be some sort of hook. And then I think, communicating the value proposition of decentralization, kind of going back to what Brock was saying, is really just about showing people more than, telling people, hey, you can do this, hey, you can do that. Give them items, make it part of your game, let them earn items, and then show them, oh, you can actually trade this. And I guess back to what Realms was saying, it has to be seamless, right? A lot of this stuff has to be back-ended in a way that people aren't facing major hurdles in trying to exchange an item for cash or for the in-game currency or whatever it might be, right? So I totally agree that we've got work to do on kind of changing the narrative, because I do think that the 2021 gaming narrative kind of put us in a hole. I think there was some interesting experimentation during that time with tokenomics and kind of this play to earn model, but it was not sustainable. And I think we saw the results of that. And, it put us in a tough spot with a lot of the general gaming space. And I do think we need to rewrite that narrative a little bit. But I think when we start to think about the possibilities for Web3, right, and how this whole gaming ecosystem evolves, one of the words that comes up a lot here is interoperability. And, we could probably have an entire space talking about interoperability, and we have. But I think there's kind of the best way to demonstrate decentralization is going to be through interoperability, the ability to use items outside of a closed ecosystem. And I think that once gamers are starting to see items that aren't limited to an ecosystem have value beyond the naturally trust-based relationship that a player has with the game developer, right? Because in most gaming ecosystems, realistically right now, even if they're Web3, even if they're fully decentralized to the extent they can be, if that studio stops producing or standing up the servers or creating new content, the game is toast, right? And so are all the assets. Sure, there could be a community movement around them, but 90% of the time, there's not enough metadata that's actually accessible on chain to even use the assets and put them into a new thing. So we still have a long way to go before the promise of NFTs persisting beyond studios and things like that, I think is real, at least in my opinion. But I think we're going in that direction, right? And I think that there's a lot of value to be had there. So, I think that as an industry, we have our work cut out for us. My thesis on how gaming goes mainstream is actually a little bit different. I'm a little more cynical on the possibilities of a Web3 native game being the thing that tips the scale. I think it's going to more likely be infrastructure providers that create very seamless back-end infrastructure for NFTs. And even more than the infrastructure, a business model that is sustainable and allows AAA studios to really lean in a way that doesn't completely disrupt their underlying game mechanics and design. I think we're going to see NFTs eventually in AAA games, and I think that that's when we'll see NFTs go mainstream. I think there's just such a big, business around AAA gaming that captures eyeballs and has influencers attached to it and the narrative and, all that. And we've seen what happens when the AAA gaming industry is not on our side, and that's how some of those narratives get created. But I do think that it will be a AAA game or a AAA studio creating a casual game that ultimately causes mainstream adoption. And there's a couple that, you look at what like MapleStory is doing or has been doing. That's a really interesting example. Ubisoft is dabbling. I know every studio has NFTs on their radar. The problem is right now, the thought of a completely open, fragmented market without downstream royalty enforcement and without a lot of the key hallmarks of, their business model scares the hell out of, a AAA studio. So until we start to create more sustainable ways of incorporating NFTs into games, we're going to remain a niche community, but I don't think that that's an unsolvable problem. I think we're going to, work hard to move in that direction. I think eventually we'll get there.
Awesome. Well, if nobody has anything else to add on that one, we can move on to individual questions here. So just give me a second here. So the first individual question is going to go to, let's see, this is going to Rums of Aloria. So, you guys have a land-based system, where players can own their own island NFTs. So what impact do you think land-based systems have on player economies in general?
Oh, I was on mute. Yeah, I think lands are awesome. I think a lot of games have lands. I think a lot of metaverse projects want to have lands incorporated into their ecosystem. So I think lands are super crucial. I think for many different reasons. I think, of course, the main one, which we've already touched on earlier, is the kind of true ownership. You own the land. You almost own the environment you're playing in, which I think is super cool, especially with Synergy Land. There's so many benefits you get to actually owning the piece of land you're playing on. Of course, scarcity drives the value of land. And I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure every land sale that's ever existed in every game or metaverse project has had a pretty limited supply, because land is something that's not unlimited. So most of the time, land is great because it allows the players to really feel like they're owning a part of the game, not just another NFT. I think also incorporating land into your game or metaverse is great because it helps with the long term kind of player retention and keeping that player to come back to the game, because they're kind of much more engaged, because the island really represents the progress they've made within the game, and it allows for much more kind of creativity within game or within the metaverse space, whatever it is you're kind of involved in. But I mean, we want to do much more than just owning land at Synergy Land. We also want to incorporate owning bosses. So I've actually pinned a tweet on the space where you guys can check out some footage from our dungeon. It's actually a clip from Kagi killing the boss. But essentially, we want to incorporate boss ownership into Realms of Illuria. Maybe I've already said Synergy Land, guys. I'm sorry, my brain is still adapting. We've only just rebranded yesterday. But yeah, so we want to incorporate boss ownership, which will be super awesome because you're going to be able to customize that boss's kind of abilities and stuff. And if players defeat your boss, they're going to earn extra loot depending on how hard you've made your boss to kill and all this type of cool stuff. So there's a lot of ownership coming to Synergy Land, and the boss ownership is definitely one of them. And if you haven't seen our dungeon gameplay, definitely check out the tweet I did link, because the dungeon gameplay is awesome and the dungeons are coming very, very soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to kind of continue to hear how land ownership models are developing, over time. I got involved in the space in 2017 because of Decentraland and because of this idea of a decentralized metaverse where you could own land. In fact, that was the use case that really crystallized what NFTs could be. I I think that was one of the first decentralized land ownership experiments, and I think that we learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work in land ownership models, and so some of the stuff that you're saying resonates a ton, right? I think that land ownership and the value of land needs to be very proportionate to what you can do with it, right? What is the actual value proposition of owning land, and is the price justified? I think once we start to talk about more than $50 or $100 for a parcel of land, I think we kind of get outside of the gaming ecosystem and start to talk more about something that's super exclusive, and now you've got to really justify value. But if you start to make it so that, all right, your land parcel is worth what someone would pay to play a game, and now they're invested in that parcel of land and they want to develop it, and there's gamification elements, and maybe there's a way for them to get some of that value back. I think that's super cool. I think that's where things need to go. I know that I paid a lot more than that in some cases for Decentraland land, and while I had a great time building on it, I learned a lot about 3D modeling and had fun. At the end of the day, the land is only as good, or was only as good in that case, as the amount of eyeballs of people passing by, or people who could come to the land. So I think that we've seen, interestingly enough, these land ownership models evolve from for example, what Otherside is doing with mineable resources. Of course, $10,000 for a parcel is probably still a bit too much in my opinion, but it is what it is. And then you see kind of what like Nifty Island's done with ownable land or non-ownable land, but not paying to own your land, and kind of having this island set up and then trying to monetize the game economy. I don't know that there's a right way to do it, and I think it's a very interesting model. Hell, we've even had people on here who are making the real world ownable and partitioning up, the real world and letting people own the digital rights within that space. I think that land ownership will eventually be a very big part of whatever the dominant metaverses and games are. But I think it's really cool. I don't think we've found the right model yet. So I'm really intrigued to see how your model continues to evolve and the feedback you get. Because I know that was something I was very interested in the early days. And yeah, I think it's something we need to hash through. I think one of the great things about this space is the amount of experimentation that we're doing in these, kind of niche ecosystems that will one day form the foundation of some much, much bigger things that we kind of need to make the mistakes and the learnings and get it right now so that we can expand it to bigger things. So kudos, I think that's very cool.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly hop back on and say I agree 100%. It's evolved so much, and I'm super excited to see where the land ownership evolution is going to go. I did just want to jump on people. Someone in the space, one of the Realms of Illuria community members, has messaged me and said my Synergy Land counter is now up to 3. So, guys, we've just rebranded. I don't mean to say Synergy Land. It's just completely stuck in my head. We are now Realms of Illuria, so I do apologize for that. And I did let Satoshiverse know I do have to dip out a little bit early. So I'm still going to be listening in for a while, but I do have to dip out, guys. I really appreciate the invite, and I hope I didn't yap for too long. Thank you very much for having me on.
No, amazing to have you. Thanks so much. Talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So we're going to move on to our next individual question, which is going to go to Gabe. So how can Web3 enhance the player experience in open world games, compared to Web2 games?
Nice question. Yeah, like it's cool. I feel like open world games are the ones that can get mostly improved by the what Web3 brings. Definitely, the most we all been saying here in the space is definitely the true ownership. Imagine all those millions of dollars spending items from Club Penguin, all those kids with the credit card, their parents' credit card, just spending their iPad. If it was on blockchain, some other game could use it or something could be made out of it. At least the players would still have it. That brings also the interoperability. And one of my favorites also, which makes perfect for Web3, is the open world game having a decentralized economy. I feel like with the assets or whatever you can have on the blockchain or the game and keep it decentralized, that's a great improvement for an open world. And I feel like all this together, because you have most of the open world games, you have the social part. You have the land ownership because you have your special place, either to have a special perk in the game or either to flex your items. So like having the ownership of that land inside the game, it's very important, and it's also a big improvement. And with all that, you have the user generated content that adds the social part with the decentralized economy and true ownership all together. You have the UGC, which if you have like a nice flow or a nice volume of UGC in your game, it's like you got there. It's like you made it because you have all the aspects together. I feel like all these 4 aspects, it's like the main improvements that we'll be seeing right now. But I believe it's just the beginning. People are creative. We can see more enhancement on the experience, definitely.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think that when you look at kind of where blockchain has really shined and where the value prop is most obvious, it's kind of this idea of being able to flex, right? And you get your stuff, you get to put it on, you walk around the world, you've got your cool thing, and then you feel value, right? Because you're with other people. I think it's harder to do that in a single player game. I think that, it's definitely, there's ways, right? And there's, more gameplay focused ways of adding NFTs and ownership to single player games. But I think just this idea of flexing, looking unique, identity, something we talk about a lot, just being able to own your identity and represent yourself in a certain way in a certain place, and maybe have that carry over to, be able to flex the projects that you associate with or that you own, or the communities. I think those are all really important things. And I think that presents a lot easier in multiplayer and social game environments. But I think the point that you said at the end, which I think is maybe the biggest one, is UGC, right? One of the challenges I think in the AAA space with UGC is you have to really, because there's a kind of a central point of failure, a central point of distribution for the money and all that, and peer-to-peer really isn't a thing in, for example, Fortnite or Roblox or some of these places. It's still all going through the company. UGC is much more challenging, right? To create sustainable UGC models that can scale. I think that Web3 in general is going to create UGC models that are going to solve a lot of real issues that are preventing games from doing UGC down the line, or that have prevented, games from doing UGC. You look at Fortnite, for example, which has an interesting UGC model with the way that they work with their islands, their creator islands. But if you want to put a skin in Fortnite and have someone own it, you can't. And I think that'll eventually be there. I think a big part of that is because they have a very, linear model for how sales are conducted, how payments are distributed. If you create an island, it's very simple, get eyeballs in your island and you'll get a % of the overall revenues. That's an easy model to implement. They're not messing with, KYC and onboarding and all the things that they would need to do to distribute funds on like a microtransaction level to hundreds of thousands of creators around the world who establish little 10, 20, 50 person micro communities around a project or a game or an idea, right? So with blockchain, you can do that. And I do think that that's going to eventually be very mainstream use case of blockchain. But with that is going to come the challenges as well, like some of the things you said about security and all of that. So definitely agree that there's some really cool stuff we can do on the UGC side and more generally in social environments.
Excellent. Well, let's move us along to the final individual question here to Brock. So question is, and maybe you can give us a little bit of background on zero knowledge proofs who aren't knowledgeable about those. But how do zero knowledge proofs enhance security and efficiency for Web3 games?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And without getting too into the weeds on the technicals, like, zero knowledge proofs obviously are like one of the main Ethereum scaling methods right now, in addition to like optimistic rollups. One thing with ZK proofs that is cool and that I think it has pretty big implications for Web3 gaming specifically is, it allows for the verification of transactions without having to necessarily reveal all the data associated with that transaction. And when you start thinking of that in terms of gaming, that actually becomes very important, especially for like on-chain games. So take like a poker game, for example, on-chain that you want to be provably fair. You want to be able to verify each transaction, but you also don't want to necessarily reveal the data associated with it. So say if I'm playing an opponent in poker, I don't want to just be able to go like look up what their hand is on chain. And so I think it's kind of a two-pronged thing here, is that it opens the door for, kind of information asymmetry that's still verifiable. And I think a lot of games that are PvP rely on this information asymmetry. So like poker, even like a first person shooter, it kind of comes back to the old screen peeking that you'd be like playing on a split screen with your little brother and you'd be like, quit peeking at my screen. Like, having all the transactions and having everything on chain and, visible to everybody kind of breaks a lot of games that rely on strategy or that rely on, having an edge over your opponent from like information standpoint. So that's a big one, I think, especially with trying to bring more games fully on chain or having more elements on chain. It opens the door to sort of, having a compromise, or not a compromise, but having the best of both worlds in terms of like security and privacy. And then also another big one is obviously like user data, especially when we start talking about more mainstream game companies incorporating crypto or incorporating NFTs. There's always a security issue or like an issue from people being worried about, oh, my personal data is going to be now exposed and people are going to be able to see what I was doing. So I think having this sort of middle ground between having the benefits of blockchain, but also being able to keep some information, private from certain parties is a necessary thing for kind of increasing both the security and the efficiency of Web3 gaming. Speaking more broadly on the efficiency side of things, and this kind of goes back to the interoperability conversation too, is that the Elastic Chain, ZK Elastic Chain is working towards like full interoperability basically for everything on the chain. And so that's a big thing when it comes to, if I build a game on this ZKL2 and then somebody has a game on a different ZKL2, I should in theory be able to, use my assets there or bring them over, without bridging. And that right there, bridges being historically one of like the main vectors for attacks and, hacks and stuff like that. I think that is also kind of something that is important and that ZK proofs kind of help bring to the table. I'm sure that there's other solutions too for things. But this is one that comes to mind for sure. I know that there's already been some like pretty mainstream game companies that have utilized it. I know like Ubisoft has used it for their NFT launch like last year. And yeah, so that's like I think the main sort of overview of what I think kind of ZK proofs, how they play into like Web3 gaming in general.
Awesome. Well, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on ZK proofs because I know and you did a very good job there. So I won't talk too much about that.
I'm also just like an intern, so I'm sure somebody else could give like way better of a background on the ZK stuff. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it right now.
No, but I think it's important. I mean, I guess my thesis on Web3 gaming is that the initial traction we're going to see is going to be a lot around gambling games and games that do require a high degree of privacy and on-chain verifiability without, hyper casual games where money is involved, right? It's the recipe for success right now in blockchain gaming. And, we've seen the extreme version of it on, Ton and what they've been able to achieve with these silly clicker games. But people like them because there's a financial incentive. There's maybe a skill-based element, but they're casual. You can do it whenever. Poker, blackjack, slots, they're all the same way. People, usually with play money, on these mobile apps, but soon with very real money, are going to be playing these games. And you do need a way of verifiably knowing that these things are fair and provably. So yeah, I think the ZK tech is going to be crucial there. And I'm very bullish on gambling in the Web3 gaming space. Not that we are doing any of it ourselves as a studio, but we definitely know plenty of projects that are. And I think if we want to talk about direct monetization and profit incentives in Web3 games, I think one of the most clear-cut use cases of Web3 technology for that purpose is peer-to-peer verifiable skill-based gambling, right? Like gambling on skill-based games, peer-to-peer, no middleman, through a smart contract in a verifiable way. That to me is going to be the early place where we see tons of games putting that spin, whether it's you get into, we have a couple actually first-person shooters or third-person shooters that have come on and basically said, our game is basically X, except when you get in here, you pay $1 to enter, and for every person you kill, you take their $1, and it happens in a trustless, decentralized way through a smart contract. We get our little fee, and that's how we fund the game. And models like that are sustainable, right? As long as people are playing the game and willing to risk their $1, someone's going to lose the $1, and that's the only time someone gains the $1, right? So there's no speculation. There's no, weird tokenomic structures. It's straightforward, and I think that's why we'll see more of it Same with poker, blackjack, slots, all those things. I think as we expand out further, the possibilities are endless. But yeah, it's cool. I guess I'm curious because, and I don't want to throw you a curveball, and I promise I'll keep it a simple question. But how are you guys thinking on the protocol side? What are you thinking are the potential value adds as a protocol when you work with games? Because we do have some games on here. We have, I've seen a lot of protocols, talked to a lot of protocols. How do you think about the relationship between a protocol and a game?
Oh yeah, man, that's a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it too comes down to like as a builder, what type of resources you're in need of and like what sort of community you're trying to build. I think the technical side of things for a lot of people, like you were just talking about, is important if you're going to be doing like a gambling side. And then in addition, just like, so like ZK Candy is a joint venture between Matter Labs and iCandy Interactive, which is a large game developer out of Southeast Asia. So I guess from like a Web3 gaming perspective, there is this sort of value add of having a generally a good experience and a lot of experience in Web2 gaming as well as kind of the Web3 side of things. So sort of having that like dual knowledge of the industry and being able to create games that feel like AAA games or like Web2 games that you'd expect, but also have full like Web3 functionality. I think a lot of the time right now, it's tough to sort of find projects or chains to build on that have that sort of like dual experience, right? Because gaming's been around for so long, but it's also such a like kind of a black box industry. It can be very hard to get into, and there's like already quite a few like major players in it. And so Web3, I think, has given us this sort of like ability to have like a grassroots movement, but that can also draw on strengths from more like traditional experience in Web2 gaming. So that's a big one, I would say. And then going back to like the gambling thing, like we were talking about earlier, I think a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth with like when you start talking about ways that they can earn from Web3 gaming, right? Because people are like, oh, that must be like a scam or it must not be sustainable. But as like a society, we're already so warmed up to the idea of gambling. Like we understand what it is. We understand that there's a risk to it and that there is a reward to it also. So being able to do that on chain and make it like provably fair, I think is an example of taking something that people are already familiar with and then actually making it more transparent and giving people more confidence in like the ability to play it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was in Macau a couple months ago for the first time, and it was unbelievable to walk into some of the casinos there and to just see how engaged people. I mean, I had been to Vegas plenty of times, and you see it, right? But it's a little bit different crowd. Vegas feels more like hungover people who just want to pull a slot machine most of the time. And Macau was like, this is fun. This is entertainment. This is what people do, coming over from Hong Kong and whatnot. And it was, I mean, 98% of the machines were digital. Sure, you had table games and there were still dealers flipping cards, right? But most of the people were playing digital games, whether that was a physical digital game like a slot machine. Everything's digital now, right? So the idea that some of this, even physical games, get backed by provable fairness, and then why keep it digital? Put it in people's pockets. The regulations are going to get there. We're going to see. We're already seeing it in the U.S. with sports betting. I think that's another really good example. Prop betting. If you could use oracles or different technologies to confirm prop bets. I've always been very excited about that use case. Never had the time to build it or research it, but I think that's a potentially huge market, right? Peer-to-peer prop betting. And yeah, so there's so many possibilities there we've talked about this too. The idea of what a game is going to change. As we start to talk about AR, a game could be going to the mall and visiting 5 different stores, and then you get a coupon or a gift certificate to buy a shirt, something like that. And that could be a game. And the game is, Pokemon Go style game for older people. Maybe that gift card is an NFT. Maybe that is something that you can transfer and there's real value there if you don't want to use it. So I think there's just like so many potential opportunities in the digital space that we are going to see grow. And at the end of the day, we talk about NFTs like they're this crazy thing. They're not. It's a tech that is the backbone of the digital economy. And as that, I think we're going to see NFTs flourish and crypto flourish in that way as, internet money, internet ownability. And yeah, I think it's cool. I always like to talk to protocols and even the interns, they're usually very smart people.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. One thing I will say too about going back to your question about choosing where to build is, one thing I've noticed with gaming is that there are very, very different gaming cultures in different parts of the world. So like Asia and Southeast Asia is like so hyper, focused on like mobile gaming, I would say more so than others. Whereas like more in the West and stuff, you'll find people that are more into, first person shooters and like console type games. And so a lot of it too, I would say comes down to like what your audience is and like where you think that your game is going to have a good market fit. Because that's a huge, that's just like a huge thing with global gaming in general is like where you're based out of and then where your market is. Can mean so much different things. Like you're saying, these types of games that are like Pokemon Go or like AR simulation, we may see a rise of these in one part of the world before others. So I think that's also kind of an interesting part of the conversation is the sort of like, this is all global, but it's also all very region specific as well. And a lot of that comes down to regulation. There are a lot of games that you straight up cannot operate in the US right now. But you can operate them in Asia. So, that's kind of something else to consider, I would say, for builders is like, what's your target demographic and where do you want to grow?
100%. All right. I'll shut up now. Spencer, back to you in case we have anything else we want to go through.
Yeah, well, so we think we have time for maybe one more question, and I think one of the questions we probably don't have time for because that's a pretty full on question about interoperability. But I think let's do the fun one. So really easy question. So what has been one of your favorite things to happen recently in Web3 and why? Either personally or in the news. And maybe Gabe, you could start.
Oh, definitely in Web3 in general, crypto, Bitcoin crossing 100,000. That's definitely a major happening. But also something that happened with those two games, right? Off the Grid and Shutterline. They are they're Web3 games and with a foot on Web2 already attracting a lot of mainstream players on Epic Store, if I'm not wrong. And that's pretty cool. I like that.
Awesome. And then Brock, you got anything for us?
I think lately I've been really excited about the AI agent narrative, especially as it applies to gaming. Shameless plug for a project building in a ZK Candy ecosystem is Future Girls Inc. I think it's linked in my bio, but this is like a party game platform that utilizes AI as like the narrator and the showrunner. So you can think of playing games like Mafia or playing like a D&D dungeon quest. A lot of it comes down to having a good like DM to run the game. And I think AI kind of has provided us with an ability to scale worlds and scale stories and narratives in a way that we haven't been able to do before. I'm a big retro gamer. I've been playing through Earthbound on my Super Nintendo, and the hours that went into writing every interaction in that game are staggering. And the fact that now we can have bespoke RPGs basically at our fingertips with customizable, narrators and settings and characters, really blows my mind. And it's something that I'm really excited about is just, not needing to spend as much time writing the script for your game and spending more time on actually working on the meat and potatoes of it, I guess. If you ever looked at like a Fallout, what is it, the speech tree or like the quest tree of how these Radiant quests work, it's a lot of work up front for these people to write all the different variations of what could happen in a quest. So that's a big thing for me. I think we're really going to see like a new generation of role playing and RPG games that come out of these AI agents. That's getting me excited for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more actually on that point. The AI narrative here is huge for what's cool. I mean, I guess one of the things with crypto, one of the things that I didn't mention before that I actually think is a value prop that I think regulation is the main reason we don't talk about it as much as we do, or as it is present. but that Web3 is a very effective way of funding, kickstarting a niche project and galvanizing a small community around an IP or an idea, right? And so when you start to think about, okay, that's great, but what are you going to do with $50,000? What are you going to do with $100,000? How do you incentivize those users to continue to be part of your ecosystem? Well, AI may be the answer to that, right? When we can accomplish ideas at a much lower price point to bring real cool things to market, and you can get together with a kickstart of an NFT launch, whatever it might be. Maybe you generate 100 grand, and that gives you the resources as a solo developer to actually develop a game and take it to market. I'm also extremely excited for that, and I do think that as we start to have more mainstream uses and less rug pulls and more stability in the NFT space, I think that using NFTs as a way of kickstarting a project is going to be a much more talked about thing, because I don't think it's anything new. I mean, you look at every Web3 game that released an NFT collection, including ours in 2021, and hopefully, I would hope that they all use the funds that they raised to make something really cool. A lot of them didn't, which is the worst case scenario. But right now we almost have regulatory pressure to say, well, no, like you can't use it as a Kickstarter. You can't use the proceeds to do something cool. I think as soon as we change that narrative, as soon as we start to create incentives for communities to help make things happen that they want to see happen, and we combine that with, talented developers and AI, we're going to see some really unique gaming concepts, kind of going to your point. So yeah, from an excitement standpoint, what's happened recently, I'm also very excited about the potential of going into 2025 with more of a bull market. As someone who's been through bulls and bears, it's a lot more fun to have the bull every once in a while. Mainly because I think good ideas get funded, bad ideas also get funded, but I think the good ideas getting funded is the important part to me. There's a lot of challenges, I think, when you're in a bear market just to get people to even look at you. And I think it's nice when you're in a bull market, you have a lot more opportunity. The builders get to build, right? The builders hope to build in the bear market if they have the funds and the money to be able to do so. But unfortunately, that leads to a lot of casualties. So, we've been building through it all. We're excited to keep building. As a project called Satoshiverse, we definitely are excited about Bitcoin hitting all-time highs. Feels like we're just getting to the beginning there. You start to look at governments talking about Bitcoin reserves, and who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of years in the space. I do hope we see some of the less sustainable narratives start to subside. I've been a critic of certain parts of the space, and I'll probably continue to be a critic of those things, and it is what it is. But we're getting to the end of the space, so I really value all of your times. It was an incredible conversation. What I'll do now is I'm going to make a quick announcement. Actually, before I do, because I always forget this, Spencer, give us the winner.
Yes, the winner this week of 5 Satoshi's Crystals is M303 or at M303. Congratulations on winning that prize. In order to claim it, all you have to do is go to game.legions2029.com and create a free account. All you have to do is then send a DM to us with your username, and then we will drop those crystals into your account. So congratulations, M303. And Nick, I'll pass it back to you to close out.
Dope. Well, yeah, congrats. Crystals are kind of the key resource within our game, and it's a ERC 1155 NFT that you can spend within the game to do cool stuff. Might have some utility in the future, so definitely check it out. Get your claim in, create the account, do your thing. Definitely excited. Congratulations. To close it out. All right, back to what I was saying. We're going to be off for a little bit. We are I'm going to be traveling personally, so we're going to be out for a couple weeks. I think 2 or 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So we're going to be pausing spaces for 3 weeks, and then after the holidays, which I hope everyone gets some much needed rest. We'll still be going on the Satoshiverse side, but putting together these spaces is a massive lift that involves a lot of people. So I definitely want to have our team take a breather and come back strong. So we will rejoin you guys on January 14th after some much needed rest. And then, yeah, we'll keep going. If you enjoyed the space, please do follow the Hideout account, follow Satoshiverse, follow all the speakers who took time out of their day to be here. Thank you for being in the audience. Thank you for those of you who will be watching the recorded versions. I know we have a lot of people around the world who can't make the live version, so thank you for you guys as well. Shout out. And then, yeah, what I'll do is I'll stop talking in a second. For those of you who missed our initial introduction, check out the pinned tweet at the top of the space or at the on our profile to learn all about Legion's 2029 Season 1, which is coming to a close on January 8th. So still about 3 weeks to get your high scores up there and complete the quests and do the free battle pass and get all the cool stuff that's in that post. So check it out. It's free to play. Fun game. Worked on it for a long time. Lots of people. I think you'll enjoy it. Check it out. Join the community. For those of you who are still on the panel, still here, please take a couple minutes to sign off. Let people know closing thoughts, where to find them. But thank you again so much for joining. Once you guys, I guess we'll start with Dinino and then go over to Brock, and then we'll close out. Thank you guys so much for being on, and yeah, see you next time.
Same, thank you so much for having us here. Was so much fun. You guys can check us out on our Twitter, of course. So always all our official announcements are posted on our Twitter, and on our Discord. We always have really some fun on our Discord. And GeninhoAdventures.com is to play our game. The alpha is live. You can play the minigame Geninho Bomb. You can walk around, get resources around the world, and stay put for the updates that we are launching soon. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate you having me on. Give ZK Candy HQ a follow and Future Girls Inc. Both on my bio. And yeah, excited to chat soon. And yeah, happy holidays to everybody. Get some well needed rest. And we'll see you next year.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll end the space now.